So after decades of continual success in boxing, the Philly shell has now entered the UFC, and it was utilized to defeat one of the greatest UFC fighters of all time. Sean Strickland pulled off that Philly shell against Adesanya and captured the UFC middleweight title. Today we're going to look at how he did it. So for me to say the Philly shell has entered the UFC, it makes it sound like it's the first time ever, and I am absolutely sure that other fighters in the UFC have done this before, but this is the first time I've ever seen it utilized this much in a fight and against a fighter of Adesanya's caliber in this big world title fight. It's pretty spectacular to be able to pull off this unique defensive style. So first let's talk about why do we not normally see this outside of boxing? What are the differences which make you go, oh yeah, maybe I don't want to do this? First off, glove size. When you see Floyd Mayweather utilize the Philly shell, he has his right hand up fairly high and he has the support of a boxing glove. So if he does take impact, it's going to sort of bounce or cushion off his forehead. And then he's able to post out and stay fairly defensive. But with the MMA glove, if you do this and you happen to get caught with a kick or something, there's a good chance you're going to go down. So it is much more dangerous to utilize the Philly shell with a 4-ounce glove versus a 10-ounce boxing glove. But Sean Strickland made it work, and let's look at some of the factors which gave him a lot of advantages, or just advantages that the Philly shell may give fighters, which we didn't even see Sean Strickland do. First and foremost, in MMA, you have to worry about a takedown. And if your hands are up really high and somebody shoots in and you decide to drop your lead arm and cross face them with the bicep, this is going to take a long time, as opposed to here where somebody shoots. I just have to do that motion. That's it. My hand is in a great position to stuff the takedown. Now again, we didn't see Sean Strickland utilize that, but I think that's a big strength of the Philly shell in MMA. Now let's focus in on some of the strengths which we saw from the Philly shell in Sean Strickland versus Adesanya fight. Number one, his jab. He was tossing it out and he was landing against Adesanya, which is something we don't normally see. What is the difference between a jab here and a jab down here? Well, number one, the punch is lower, which means, okay, yes, the distance to travel is further, but it's gonna come at an odd angle. And if you're watching, or at least used to watching hands up here, and all of a sudden it's down here, you might think, oh, it's not really a threat. And then all of a sudden, it's flicking up. It's right in your face. The angle change is also going to make things a little difficult, because normally when you come straight down the middle, you can just use your hand and parry right across. But now the punch is coming this direction. It's coming upwards, and a simple parry like this, especially if you're focusing on the hand and leaving the elbow behind, this might not necessarily block it. So you either have to come down and pat down the punch, or you have to come across with your entire arm, because this angle change is going to create issues. Now counters are a must from the Philly shell, because once you're down here, you're leaving yourself fairly exposed, right? When you look at this, this looks much less safe than up here. So once you get somebody to throw and you block one shot, you need to be countering back. Massive thing which Floyd Mayweather was able to utilize, right? He would be here, he'd roll with the shoulder and he'd fire back, and his counters were so on point, and we saw that from Strickland versus Adesanya. When he did get a couple punches thrown at him, very often he was able to counter back and utilize that to stop any further attacks. Now defensively, Sean Strickland was looking so good in this fight, and while the Philly shell was very good positioning, he was able from here to utilize a little rollback with his head, because you can see everything so clear, and you know that you can block things on this side, but this side is more exposed if you're not going to shoulder roll or lift your elbow. So what we saw him do a lot was just tip the head back, and then from there you can get those counters going. It's a great way to use that Philly shell. You're just here and you just lean back very slightly, and the person is going to be coming right for your head. So if you can even move back 2 or 3 inches, generally they're going to miss. Strickland did this so very well. Now something else we saw from this Philly shell, which made it so hard for Adesanya to land, was a simple double arm reach out. So we see Strickland in this position, and Adesanya probably goes, oh, okay, I'm just gonna step in and throw something, and he won't get the block off. But we always saw Strickland in this sort of plodding forwards movement, just get both hands right up the middle. He would just come like this, and then anything that comes down the center is gonna be blocked, or if he saw something coming from a rounded position, he would just get the hand out to the side. And it was making it so hard for Adesanya to find that ideal range to get a good power shot off. And in addition, from here, whenever Adesanya threw that left round kick, Strickland had his hand up and he was just able to reach out. And a lot of times, if you leave your hand here and you only go slightly out, you're gonna take too much impact. But Strickland was able to reach very far because from here, your eyesight is very good and you've got to be very focused. Whereas up here, it's a little harder to see things coming. I know many people when I work with them say, Gabriel, my guard almost feels like it's blocking my view. Well, imagine what happens when you put your hands down here. It's like you can see everything, nothing impeding your vision. Overall, this Philly shell defense is something we don't normally see in the MMA world, but it shows you that all the different styles, whether it's hands up, that orthodox regular sort of stance, or whether it's that karate fighting style where you're bouncing, or you take that Philly shell, it can all work if you're very good at the style and you have an opponent that it does work against. We saw Strickland do stuff like this against Pereira, but Pereira did not fight the same way as Adesanya, and all of a sudden, when you're not getting every block off, you're eventually gonna get hit, and then you get KO'd. So sometimes the Philly shell will work, sometimes it won't. You want to be able to change up between the different styles when necessary, depending on your opponent. But I love seeing some variety in the UFC defensive-wise, and even though the fight was not spectacular, it was very interesting getting to see this finally arrive in the UFC. So would I recommend you guys jump into the gym and try some Philly shell defense? Well, I play around with all sorts of different defenses because you never know what's going to click with you. I think last week I was using the guy who beat Canelo, Bivol. He goes like this, keeps his arm out, and I was trying that. And I was having great success with it because the guy across from me was an amateur boxer, and normally he's really quick in and out. But once I stuffed this down the middle, he kept hitting the palm, trying to get in, and then I was able to counter. So don't write the Philly shell off just because it's not normally used in MMA or kickboxing or Muay Thai. Try it out. Be very aware that yes, you are more exposed from this position, but it does have its advantages, as Strickland showed us on the weekend. So let's call it there, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this episode on the Philly shell entry into the UFC. If you did, please give the video a like. If you have not already, join the channel, get subscribed. And as always, guys, train hard. I'll see you back here soon for another video.